fellow mug authors Charlotte and Gail are joining me for a talk about writer burnout, how to avoid it, and just kind of our top tricks and tips. Um, Gail, do you want to start us off, since you're probably the most experienced of the three of us?
I'm just trying to get my head around the idea of burning out on writing.
I know. Well, yeah.
Yeah, there are days when I don't get a chance
Yeah.
to, and I
Yeah.
start getting a little weird. I remember what
Yeah.
Robert Heinlein, Holy Heinlein, as we call him, said that he thought he could just put down writing anytime. It was just no big deal. It was fun to do, and he made some money on it, and it was cool. So he'd go off and do something else, and then he'd start picking at his head and saying, these ideas would start shooting out, and he'd just say, so he realized that he was addicted, and he had to get back to it. He just had no choice. So I kind of feel like that myself. I'll take a day or two away and do other things, all that pesky old real life stuff that you have to go and do. But my head won't stop. I was taking a bath yesterday and a story idea appeared in my head. I said, man, I really got to get out and dry off and write that down. So burnout, I get tired, and but so far the subconscious is still spewing out stories. So I'm curious to hear what you guys do, so I can incorporate that into what I do. Okay, so
I guess I really identify with that, because I think so. You're in a sense talking about the opposite of burnout. How if you don't scratch that itch and satisfy that sort of creative wellspring inside of you, you will start to feel antsy, right?
Yes.
I think it's ironic though, because I think when I think of people who might complain most about burnout, it's the people who actually are letting external things besides writing affect their writing. So, for example, the people that are spending 90% of their time on marketing, and then only 10% of their writing, and then that little 10% of their time spent writing, they feel that pressure, right? Because they don't have much time to write. And so then they feel burned out, ironically, even though they're actually not writing all that much, but it's because they're letting these other pressures sort of make them feel like they're not accomplishing enough. That's kind of what's creating that sensation of burnout. So not to say that marketing doesn't have its place, obviously it does, but I think we see that especially in Vela, where people that are really putting that pressure on themselves are getting that burnout. And I don't necessarily think it's because they're doing a ton of writing. Sometimes it is, but I think sometimes it's also that pressure. So I think that's kind of ironic, but sort of interesting. But yeah, because I agree with you. I think most of us, we just love writing so much that it's kind of hard to burn out. You have to try.
Exactly.
How about you, Charlotte? Yeah, Charlotte, what do you think, as far as, have you had burnout, or are you kind of more on Gail's wavelength with that?
Since I've spent the last 3 weeks doing art and have written nothing, and I don't think that's burnout at all. I think what happens is, whatever it is, and I will say, there are times when I have to write, but I find that I'm rusty at it. I was working at it the other day, and I was getting 5 words a minute. I would get a sentence, which I would type. And then after 5 minutes, I would get one more. And I'm literally getting like teletype in my brain. A, B, 2, 4, 5,
Yeah.
And that's not burnout. It's that I haven't written. And I know
it's rust.
It's rust. It's definitely rusty. Yes.
Rusty. So, and I found when it's been a long time since I've done any artwork, because there have been times when I've gone months and months without doing any artwork. When I come back to it, I'm rusty. Everything is stiff. It's like it needs to be oiled up and greased. And one of the reasons that I'm not writing right now, and has nothing to do with writing, is that I've got so many other things on my brain. Doing art is like something I can do without thinking. It gives me, of course, I'm usually listening to a book too, but it gives me relief from everything else that's going on. Because there is a good bit I mean, I realized today I have another doctor's appointment next week that I had forgotten about, which I need to arrange to get a car or to get a ride, which won't be hard. I mean, it's not, I know how long it takes. I know what it is, yada, yada. I have these wonderful friends who fuss at me when I don't ask them, you know.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't see that as burnout. I see that as I'm doing something that I know is productive right now, if not addictive. You know, it's like I don't make dragon notebooks every week. I was like, I get kind of nervous about that, and you know, and
Is there? Yeah. No, sorry. Go ahead. No, I just was curious if there, and this, I know this is sort of going off on a tangent a little bit, but do you have like a record of like, do you know how many pieces of artwork you produced for Artemet through the years?
yeah, if you'll give me a minute to load the spreadsheet, I'll tell you.
I'm
It's
just curious.
because I keep track of what I've sent them, so I know what to make next. So far this year, let me scroll this back over here.
Because I like to brag that you are the most successful artist I know, which is a fact.
Absolutely a fact. Absolutely a fact, yes.
I sent them last year 1,844 pieces, of which 413 were dragon notebooks.
Wow.
This year, I have sent them 426 pieces, of which 165 were dragon notebooks.
Wow.
Well, and it's still pretty early in the year, so yeah.
Well, and they said that they actually put out a thing on Facebook. We need art. Said our January vendors they're going through the art very quickly, and so that was like, you know, rock and roll. You need art. I need to do art.
Wow.
But talking about burnout, this is, I guess, kind of a long way around to get to what you're saying.
Yeah.
We go and paint every Friday morning, and the last couple of weeks, my paintings have not made me happy at all. I wasn't in the mood to do that, so it may be that I'm a little burnout on doing on doing that on Friday because it's Friday morning.
Well, and we may be really tapping into what's the reason that the three of us don't get burnout, which is the fact that we have things besides our writing that we are passionate about. You know, Charlotte, you have your artwork. You know, I do stuff besides just writing too. Like I like to do investing. I like to do very different types of writing. Like I like to do game design, which is really kind of a whole different thing from just writing. And so I think we have other outlets that we're not constantly only writing. Gail, you might be the exception there. No, I'm just kidding. No, well, even you though, Gail, you know, you have like your love of nature and like, you know, you and Jerry go out all the time. You're not by no means are you like the recluse writing in her awesome writing cave, you know, layer. Although you do have an awesome writing layer.
Yes.
Ta-da. But yeah, I think it helps that like if you have a certain balance in your life and a balance in your interests, even a little bit, I think that prevents a lot of the burnout issues.
I'm proud of the fact that last year I wrote 6 novellas in about 9 months, and possibly the fact that they were so different in genres may have kept me from being burned out on that too. But at the same time, that was good, and I did sort of like slack off after the first of the year and kind of catch up on other things. So I don't know if that was necessarily burnout or just you just need, you know, a change is as good as a rest, in other words. So
I love that. A change is as good as a rest. I'm going to put that quote down.
I've seen that somewhere, and I thought that was brilliant because that does make sense. You know, it really does.
And you did get burned out definitely on writing Westerns a little bit. I remember you telling me.
Yeah, so, I did because it was, I guess because it's a new genre and I'm learning so much about it, and it got a little overwhelming. And when it gets overwhelming, it gets less fun. And then I just realized, okay, well, it's just, I'm just telling a story. So, you know, it just happens to be the settings a little different. So it's not my favorite genre to write, but I am starting to enjoy it more. So there is that. So again, so many different levels of burnout. You know,
so there you have it. That's kind of like three different perspectives on burnout, but I think we all kind of come from a similar place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at least, and I'll do a follow-up video on maybe kind of more advice on how to avoid burnout.